Thank you. Thank you to the Chamber and to everybody who came out tonight, everybody watching at home, showing your interest in this election. My background includes up to about 3 decades of work in local government, in economic development, redevelopment, and community development. I retired as the Director of Community Development for the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency in 2008. For the last 4 years, I've been on Benicia's Planning Commission, and most of that time has been spent dealing with the Crude by Rail project from Valero. We had 2,500 pages of documents to read. We had dozens of hours of hearings. Many of you may have come to some of those hearings and gave your testimony. It was a very complicated project. Because I am retired and I had an interest in this, I was able to dedicate the time needed to really dig in and understand many of the issues. And when the project came before the Planning Commission in February of this year, I asked a lot of critical, analytical questions of the project. And in the end, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 unanimously to reject the application. That was appealed by Valero to the City Council. The City Council decided in March to delay making a decision. It's coming back to the City Council next week, next Tuesday. And at that time, the Council will have the opportunity to make a choice and make a decision on this project, or continue waiting. It is my belief that we have enough information and that it's time to make a decision on this very important project. Commissioner Oakes and I obviously voted the same way on this project. Mayor Patterson and Councilmember Campbell have also indicated that they intend to vote against it. On the other side, Mr. Larga-Spada has testified in favor of the project, and Ms. Strawbridge and Mr. Hughes have not given a definitive position on it, and hopefully we'll hear about that tonight. What the Sino project, the Northern Gateway project on the Sino property, is also a matter of significance to the community. It calls for the construction of up to 900 houses, and I think that is problematic on a number of levels, primarily because of where the water is going to come from or won't come from. We're being asked to conserve water, and at the same time, we would be told that we'd have plenty of water for another 900 houses. So I hope to get into many of these issues through these questions as we go forward. And I thank you again for your attention.
As a member of the City Council, what will be your long-term and short-term goals?
Most of the candidates mentioned many of the relevant issues on this topic. Let me just highlight a couple. Short-term, there is a proposal to take the city's wastewater and treat it and send it to Valero. Right now, Valero uses half the water in the city. The only question, everybody's in favor of this. It's an innovative, imaginative program. The only question is who's going to pay for it. And it's my belief that Valero and not the city should be the one paying for it, since they're the beneficiary of the water. But the city, in fairness, would benefit as well, because when it was put in place, it would effectively double the amount of water available to the rest of us, and that is more than significant. People have been talking about how this is a full-service city, and that's correct, and people have come to expect that. What that means, though, is that we provide services not above and beyond, but we provide our own police, fire, library, water treatment, wastewater treatment, and these are services that combined are expensive, and we don't necessarily have the revenue to support all of them long-term. And while I'm not saying we need to stop providing those services, we certainly need to look at how we're going to pay for those going forward.
Benicia is often referred to as a full-service city. Based on the city's financial challenges, how would you sustain this model, or what changes would you explore?
It's natural that everybody enjoys the full services. The problem is that the price has to be paid, and that price is coming due relatively quickly. There are efficiencies that the cities could undertake. The mayor alluded to the fact that there are 2 different departments responsible for landscape maintenance. It goes beyond that. One department is responsible for maintaining the medians in the middle of the streets, while another department is responsible for maintaining the shoulders of those same streets. That just doesn't make sense. We've got 4 different departments who have separate responsibilities for code enforcement. That is not the most efficient use of resources. I agree with Mr. Campbell that we ought to be looking at ways that we can work with other communities to provide services. I've never worked, all the cities I've worked in have been larger than Benicia, and they all had regional water treatment programs and regional water systems. The last example I'll give is we've got a relatively small police department and fire department, yet we run our own dispatch. And that is the kind of thing that could be shared with other communities and probably save us money going forward.
What is your position on the Crude by Rail project? Please give specific reasons for either supporting or opposing the project.
I oppose this project for a number of reasons. I don't believe it's a safe project. There are multiple examples of derailments and explosions of this when you haul this Bakken crude oil by rail. It is not moved in the most safe manner. It's not being proposed to use the safest rail cars. Union Pacific is not agreeing to lower the speed of the trains going through Solano County. Valero itself says that if this project is denied, that only means that they're not going to be able to process Bakken crude. They're not going to shut down. They're not going to leave town. They will continue business as usual. I don't believe that the benefits to the community, which would be limited to 20 jobs and an unknown amount of revenue from the building permit and increased property tax, is worth the risk. There is a serious Water's End, and much of Benicia already is in what's called a blast zone. Real estate disclosures now require owners adjacent to the refinery to disclose that they are in this situation where they are subject to a possible disastrous explosion. And overall, I don't think it's a project that serves the community. It's too much risk for too little reward.
Thank you very much. Do you support or oppose the proposed Northern Gateway project on Sino property, which calls for construction of 900 homes? Do you have any concerns about supplying water to these homes?
Yes, I do have concerns about this project. I met with Mr. Schwartz also, and his proposal for 900 homes does not include a school. It does not include a fire station. He said that the kids would go to Robert Semple, which is a good distance away. They'd have to go by car. It's close to the refinery. They're not going to put in a fire station. They would rely on fire services from either downtown or the station house on Hastings. And he said, but the good thing is that these houses are going to be really cheap. They're going to sell for $400,000. I'm not sure what he meant by cheap in that sense. That's cheap certainly by real estate standards for Benicia, but I'm concerned about the quality of what kind of house you're going to get for $400,000. And I think if you're going to plan for something like the development of the Northern Gateway, ultimately that land will be developed. But it should be the city who comes up with the concept, not simply responding to a development proposal that comes in from a developer. We should be the ones who are deciding what happens there and not just being asked for an up or down vote on somebody else's idea.
Water and sewer rates are going up due to lack of maintenance over many years. Our residential and commercial roads are suffering from the same issue. How will these repairs be paid for?
Implicit in that question is a criticism of past councils for not making the tough decisions needed to raise rates when they should have been raised, with the result that this deferred maintenance built up to a point where a significantly larger increase was necessary. I don't think that council or the city did a very good job of explaining to the citizens why that was necessary or where the existing costs were being distributed. 80% of your bill is a sewer maintenance charge, and there was very little discussion about how that sewer maintenance money is being distributed and expended right now. I think if we were able to implement the wastewater conversion project for Valero, that would be huge. That would potentially increase our available water by 50%, and we might not be worried about future water increases going forward. As far as roads go, I think George is correct. And the mayor, it's the state that sets the gas tax, and the gas tax has not been raised in nearly 20 years. And with more fuel-efficient cars, there's less gas being bought, and therefore there's less money coming to the city than there used to. Measure C is a backstop, but we have to make some choices about how we're spending Measure C money in ways that benefits the majority of the community.
What would you do to encourage affordable infill housing?
I think this is a very important issue. Infill housing may be one of the only ways that we can build affordable housing going forward. I would like to see where there are developments coming forward for single-family houses on small developments that we encourage, if not mandate, second units, granny units. I would like to see duplexes on corners instead of single-family houses. Right around the corner from where I live, there is a development of 5 houses going forward, being built right now, and that property could have accommodated 15 or 20 condominiums or apartments. And I understand why developers may not want to do that. They come forward with a plan for 5 units and it's zoned properly and the city just processes it that way. But I think if we look at the few remaining buildable parcels we have and think about possibly upzoning those properties, we can get a more diverse mix of housing developed, and we certainly need that.
And the question is, what can you do to retain and attract businesses to Benicia's deteriorating industrial park?
One of the problems that you have out there is you've got too many businesses that aren't really suitable for an industrial park. We've got churches, we've got exercise studios, we've got dance studios in these places that are essentially warehouses. And warehouses as a type of business don't really spin off a lot of tax revenue to the community. I think the other big issue, though, is that nobody's mentioned is until the crude by rail issue is settled, there are a number of businesses. We had a doctor come to the Planning Commission meeting saying he had a biomedical device company he was interested in locating in Benicia. He liked everything about Benicia, but when he heard that the trains would be blocking access to the properties for 10 minutes at a time, 4 times a day, that was a deal breaker for him. And we have a situation where we're going to be blocking Park and Bayshore for enough time to make it not very friendly to businesses who would consider moving there.
All right, everybody will have 3 minutes for closing remarks.
I've never done this before. I've never run for office before. I wasn't really sure what I was getting into when I agreed to do this. I have learned quite a bit in this process, most of it from walking precincts and talking to people and finding out what is important and what they like and don't like about the community. One thing I do know is that the election will not be about who has the most signs or who has the biggest signs or who loves the community most. We all love the community. We wouldn't be up here doing this if we didn't. I think the question in front of the voters is where do the candidates stand on the issues and who is the most qualified to serve in this respected position. I believe that my 3 decades of experience working in local governments has given me the knowledge and experience and understanding that make me the most qualified person to do that. My work on the Planning Commission has, I believe, demonstrated my ability to dig in and spend the time to really understand issues and ask the difficult questions that need to be asked. And that's not something that happens all the time. There are a lot of things that this community needs to deal with. We've talked about a lot of them tonight, and I hope that people who are out there watching will go to my website, steveyoungforcitycouncil.org, and there is a lot of discussion on that website about how we can address some of these issues that have been talked about tonight. So in closing, I would simply ask for your vote and thank the Chamber and my fellow candidates and all of you for showing up tonight. And let's hope that this remains a clean and positive campaign on everybody's part.